my breath, and that was on oxygen. And with HRN, they gave me my life back. They allowed me to use the tools that they provided. It was a lifesaver. It's all I can say. It was a lifesaver. I do my housework, I vacuum. I mean, it's a little trying, but I get it done. You know, I use the breathing technique, and if I have to, I sit down and rest. But more and more, I'm just continuing with what I'm doing and getting it done. I haven't really spoken to the pulmonologist. He's the one, his office is the one that gave me the paperwork to contact HRN. My primary doctor had asked me questions about it because she saw the progress that I made, and I gave her the information also. I think I would still be sitting in a chair with oxygen on and not being able to do anything. If I didn't have the tools that HRN gave me, of course, I had to take the time and implement those tools. And it wasn't easy at times, and I felt like, why? But I just pushed through, persisted, and I'm where I am today, and I'm very happy, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. They're very aware of who's doing what, and I have to tell you, I was a little skeptical when I heard it was on Zoom. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, how is this going to work? But it's...
All right. Hello, everybody. It's Alex Grichuhin again with HRN, of course. All right, so... if you have any comments or you want to ask a question, please don't hesitate and write in the comment section. Anyways, there's a question that I'll be talking about, and the topic of today's session will be for what happens to the body when your lungs are removed. I'm assuming not the whole thing. So I'm assuming it's just a part of a lung. Okay? So we're going to talk about that really quick. Now, when we look at the lungs, and by the way, if you have any comments, anything like that, just go right ahead and write in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer those types of questions. For people that don't know me, just in case, I'm Alex Grichuhin. I'm the Director of Advanced Lung and Heart Disease here at HRN. I work alongside with a lot of the doctors with HRN, like Dr. Shaw, our Chief Medical Officer, and other practitioners. Anyways, so today we're going to be talking about what happens to your lungs when they're removed. Okay, so let's spread out the lungs really quick. So, and mind the artwork, okay, because it's not one lung. You don't have one lung. You have two different. You have one on your left and one on your right, but they're different segments. So on the segments, on the left or the right, you have a total of 5 lungs, actually. And you might see my dog right here. He's my emotional support dog, so just in case, don't worry, he's cool. Anyways, so what holds open a lung first? What keeps the lungs open? So a lot of people think positive pressure, but that's actually not true. It's negative pressure that keeps the lung open. So surrounding the lungs, you have what we call the visceral and parietal pleura. Okay, those are the lining of the lungs. All right, so we're just going to take a look at it. So you have linings of the lungs, and you have visceral and parietal pleura. So I'll just put them in different colors, just so you can understand there's 2 different ones. Okay, one lining surrounds the cavity of inside the chest wall itself. That's one parietal. Okay. Then you have the visceral, okay, that surrounds the actual organ itself. In between there, you have what we call a phospholipid. Phospholipid is lipids, or this L-I-P-I-D, lipid. Lipids are fats, waxes, and oils. So surrounding inside the lung cavity itself, between the pleural spaces, are a phospholipid. So phospholipid just means it's a specific type of lipid. It's an oil base, and the reason why there's an oil base is because it will reduce friction. Your heart has the same thing, has a visceral and parietal pleura, okay, but we call it the pericardial sac. So it has a phospholipid there, and the reason why you have this wax and oil surrounding it, this phospholipid, is because the heart has to beat, and that beating can cause friction. So if the phospholipid wasn't there, it would just be rubbing against the wall, causing a lot of heart pain and chest pain. If you have these, if basically the membranes that surround the lung itself and the chest wall, and let's say they start rubbing against each other, it will cause pain, a lot of severe pain, especially what we call with pleuritis, which is the inflammation of the pleural linings. They'll rub together and it'll feel like a stabbing pain on the side. So when somebody breathes in, they feel like somebody just stabbed them on their side with that. Okay. So, anyways, this lung right here, this is held open with negative pressure. So let's say there's negative 4 centimeters of water. Okay. Or negative 2 to 4 centimeters of water. Okay. What that means is that if and of course we have the ribs. Not, there's a lot of ribs. But anyways, if I took something sharp and punctured through the rib into the chest wall cavity, because this is held open with negative pressure, the lungs are held open with negative pressure. As soon as I pop a hole through that cavity, the air from the atmosphere will start coming in, collapsing the lung. Okay? And this lung will actually shrink in size. And now you have this little small segment like that. You have this lung shrunk in size, and we'll look at that as on a chest x-ray. But another indicator to look at is when we look at the airway itself. Once this collapses, the deviation of your septal membranes, so on where your trachea is, right here, this is your windpipe trachea. Okay, if there was a lung collapse, the trachea will actually shift to the right or left depending on where air or where the collapsing is. Because if they're held open with negative pressure, if one collapses, if one area collapses, one lung collapses, the whole shift, your trachea will actually move over to the part that's not collapsed. Okay? So this is held open with negative pressure. Now, let's say this happens. What is the fix? How do we fix this problem? We fix this problem by doing postural drainage. So this void right here, there's a void now, okay? Where the lung used to be, there's a void there. So this can be filled up with the other lung if this stays collapsed. In the medical field, in a clinical setting, what we would do is we would actually put a chest tube, and we'll put it just underneath the armpit sometimes, or it depends on where it's at, where it's best. It's actually, you look at the chest x-ray to determine where the best place to put that chest tube in. Anyways, they put a chest tube in, and they attach a vacuum to it. Not like a vacuum for vacuuming a floor, a different type of vacuum. So that tube will start pulling some of the air out, and the lung will start filling up back into shape. Okay? And you might have seen this before where we're actually pulling the bad stuff out, right? The air that's filled up that's caused the collapse. So we insert a chest tube, and then you have these 3 chambers. Okay? It's a water chamber. So the tube is actually connected to this water chamber, and that tube from the water chamber is going into a pump. Okay, that pump constantly pulls, it just constantly pulls pressure out, right? It constantly pulls that air out. So when it goes in this water chamber, it's a lot of technical stuff, but this is the water chamber, and this is how we fix the collapsed lung. Now, let's say you have somebody had a lobectomy, okay? Let's say somebody had a complete lobectomy. That means we had to take one whole entire segment out. And now the person is left with one lung, okay, or one whole lung lobe itself. And the heart stayed right here, mediastinal, and the other lung that surrounded it, okay. what will happen for this void? Because remember, they just took this whole entire lung out, so now you have this void that surrounds the heart, you know. So now you have this void that surrounds the heart. Good day. Speak a little louder, please, especially when facing your whiteboard. So, Charlotte, this is called a microphone. I don't need to speak up louder facing the whiteboard because the microphone is with me the whole time. What do you mean? Is that what you're thinking? So, Charlotte, it's, all right, no big deal. So, facing the whiteboard has no interference with the microphone because the microphone's right here. Okay? All right. Probably be a good idea to turn up your volume, I would say. Probably be a good idea. So what happens to the void here? There's a void now. There's an empty space, what we call a void. So after about 3 to 6 months, well, that empty void, that area where the lung used to be at, will actually start, this lung right here will start inflating and start pushing the heart over. It'll shift the heart over. Where your heart, instead of staying mediastinal, stays right in the center, let's say. If this lung is full and this one got taken out, my left lung got taken out, well, this lung will triple in size by itself and start pushing that heart to the side. And then when a doctor or a nurse, let's say a doctor that didn't know you, and they put a stethoscope on you to auscultate, to listen, okay? That's what they call auscultating. So they listen and they hear the heart is not there anymore. They probably didn't know that the heart got shifted, moved over if that's not their, if you're not their patient, okay? So the heart will actually shift and move over while this one will expand. Why does the lung expand by itself without you guiding it? Because you're a human being, it knows the chemistry. If one lung is not working, it's going to try to compensate, right? So if the other lung was in there, it didn't have enough space to do that. So the lung by itself, with one whole lung taken out, the lung will actually triple in size. With the lung now would be like this. The lung will be a lot larger. The heart will actually move over a little bit. We see this happen all the time with lobectomies. So the heart will actually move over while this one is starting to fill up. Maybe it was the position on your mic. Or on your, yeah, it's my fault, not your volume. I got you, Charlotte. No worries. It's always my fault, right? All right, so the lung will triple in size. The heart shifts over and moves a little bit. So there was one patient, I'll just say patient G, because I know her last name was G. Nurse called me up in the middle of the night and said, hey, we're having a hard time finding, like, we can feel this patient's pulse, but we can't listen, we can't hear it. And I said, well, like, what do you mean? And this is the middle of the night. So I wake up, from a phone call, and nurse calls me up and said, hey, your patient G, we can't hear her heart. We might have to send her to the hospital. I said, whoa, which patient is this? I said, yeah, her heart's not in the center anymore. It's in the armpit. They're like, what? I said, well, yeah, she had a lobectomy. That's what happens. When you have a lobectomy, the heart will shift and move over. You're not going to find the heart here. If you look at the chest x-ray, you see the heart's actually over here now. It's right underneath the armpit. And they're like, why? Why did that happen? Well, the body knows it can't live with a small volume, so it's not going to deal with the small little lung. It's going to triple in size so it can get as much air into the lung as possible and enough for gas exchange, for CO2 elimination, oxygen coming in, right? Okay. So this is what happens to a lung when we take one whole lung out. The one lobe out. Does anybody know how many lungs do you have? So you have a total of 5. You have 2 lung lobes, okay, but you have different segments. So each lung has a different segment. You might have 2 on one side, 3 on the other, a total of 5, okay? If you took one whole lung lobe segment out, and you took away this, you're still left with this, and these will still work fine, okay? Well, this one is being taken out, partial lobectomy. That's what would happen, is the spaces will increase. Your lungs can actually stretch out pretty far. For those that do not know, Okay? How far can you stretch the lungs out? Does anybody know how far you can stretch the lungs out? So if you ever get on Jeopardy or something like that, or you can obviously look this up, you'll get this answer correct. You can actually stretch a human lung at the square footage of a tennis ball court. That's how big you can stretch it. That's a fact. Whether you like it or not, that's a fact. You know, that's pretty crazy where you can stretch a lung that far out, that much. And it's not like they actually, they did a calculation. It's not like they actually took one lung out of somebody and rolled it out with a pizza roller, you know, and just, yeah, it covers the square footage. No, but it can stretch out, according to calculations. A lung can actually stretch out to the surface area, square footage of a tennis ball court. That's how big your lungs can be. Your lungs can actually stretch out very far. The fibers that make up the lung is called elasticin. Okay, so anyways. All right. Now, let's see any questions. Can you suggest any supplements that will help with inflammation? It's a good question. Good question. Supplements that can help with inflammation. Supplements. So there, you know, all medications are derived from something natural, you know. And of course, like if this guy was having a hard time breathing, obviously I would know what to do. I would definitely know what to do because I had to research everything about, you know, the body of a dog and how to do CPR, you know, to save a dog's life. But for his breathing problems, I have to give him supplements. But a dog versus a human being is obviously going to be a little different. Not very much different, though, by the way. Okay, animals, we are animals. Okay, we are animals. So the you know, how we feed a dog and versus how we feed a human are different now, but they're not very much different from each other. They have brains. They have they can get emotional. Dogs can get emotional. Animals can get emotional. They have feelings just like we do. Okay, for those that don't think that's true, then you should go back to high school or something because that's ridiculous to think that. You know, that's already been proven. You know, dogs get emotional. You know, that's like my kid. Anyways, so as far as supplements, you know, all medications are derived from something natural. So when it comes to inflammation, green tea, those are pretty good. Green tea, that's good for inflammation. You also have chicken noodle soups. There's something in the broth that actually does that. So, but I can bring that up next time. I'm not a dietitian, so I can't go over a lot of the supplement type of stuff. I just know the generic, you know, things that are pretty good for generic reasons, you know, generic things. Okay. Sorry, Spike. Let me see this here. Okay. So like I said, if you have questions, write in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer those. Let's see. How not to get out of breath so quickly while active. How not to get out of breath so quickly while active. This is going to be a big answer, like a long answer. We should all understand that being winded when you work out can be normal, so it can be normal depending on your exercise. So like I brought up here before a Borg scale in line with a talk test. You just have to look at the other video. So let's say this is 10, of course, and this is 0. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So then I just divide these sections out according to me. So 8, 9, and 10, that's going to be the worst of your work of breathing. 0 is going to be the least, not the best. Make sure we understand that. 0 does not mean the best. It means the least winded. Okay? When people think that 0 would be the best, it is literally the most insane thing you can think of is 0 as being the best. 0 is not the best. Okay? 0 is the least. Why do I state that? When somebody's working out and they're staying at a 0, is that going to be beneficial to them? Look at it that way. Is that going to help that person? If somebody's at a 0, is that going to help that person? No. Okay? The person's not feeling any levels of windiness. The person is not having to inflate their lungs very much. They're pretty content. They're pretty okay. So this wouldn't benefit somebody. If somebody in my class is working out in this level, yeah, very good, Samantha. If somebody was working out in this level here, it wouldn't help them. It will keep them comfortable, but it would not help that person. You see, I see this a lot, especially in gyms, where somebody in a gym, they know me. I go into the gym a lot, so they know me, and they're like, Alex, I'm walking on my treadmill, every single day, and I've been doing this for at least a year, I feel, but I still get winded going upstairs. Good job, Michelle, 4, 5, and 6. And so I asked the person, okay, I said, show me your routine. What are you doing? And the person is walking on a flat surface on a treadmill, which is fine, but they're staying with 1 mile an hour. Just 1 mile an hour. That's it. Really slow. Well, that's all I can do. I said, that's fine. But you're wondering why you can't go upstairs. You're wondering why you can't go further. You're wondering why you get out of breath so quickly. That's the reason. You're only structuring your activity to tolerate 1 mile per hour. You're only tolerating flat surfaces. You're not even putting any of the major exercises, into play, like adding a hill to your exercises. Like instead of walking on a flat surface, why can't you periodically, like every 2 minutes on a treadmill, go up a slight hill and then drop it back down, give yourself a 2-minute break, then give yourself a slight hill? Because if you only tolerate flat surfaces, Spike, stop, you're so annoying. If you only tolerate, do you ever see my guitar, guys? Look. Come here. What do you can't get the mannequin. Okay, I'm going to show you to everybody. That's Spike. In case you want to know, I'm not talking to myself. This is Spike. He just likes to be adorable and try to grab mannequins and eat them. Anyways, yes, you're cute. Everyone thinks you're cute. I know they do. All right. So if you're adding hills, that means you can start tolerating hills. If the person only exercises on a flat surface, they're doing it for months at a time, that's all they can tolerate. Because that's all they're training themselves in are flat surfaces. You can't go upstairs because you never added stairs to your exercise. You can't go uphill because you never added a hill to your exercise. And plus, 1 mile per hour is not going to help you dramatically. Karen says, hi, Spike. Okay, so when somebody's working out, they should be in this level here, always in a heart-healthy level. That's a 4, 5, and 6. So according to this question, it says how to not get out of breath so quickly while active. Well, if you're getting out of breath so quickly, what is going on? Is it possible that you are not ventilating or prepping yourself before you stand up and walk? Is it like, for instance, look here, look. I'm sitting down, okay? I'm about to go and exercise. From everyone who's been in the program, only the people who have been in the program, what should I do before I stand up? Purse lip breathe for how long? How long do I purse lip breathe for? Now, how do I know I'm purse lip breathing correctly? Because I see a lot of people thinking they know how to purse lip breathe and they do it completely wrong. What if somebody did this? They're like, well, that's purse lip breathing. I was like, no, it's not. You warm up first? Sure, you can warm up first. How do you know you're purse lip breathing correctly, though? It's enough to move, the pressure of your purse lip should be able to move a piece of tissue, right? So if it's not moving a piece of tissue, like if you're doing this, and it doesn't move at all from arm's length in front, can't be anything closer, then that purse lip breathing that you're using to prep yourself wouldn't work. Below tissue, very good. Okay, so now I purse lip breathe for 10 seconds and then I stand up. Now I'm about to exercise. I just prepped myself I just prepped myself up by pursed lip breathing for 10 seconds before taking off. And that doesn't look abnormal. I mean, Olympians do that. If you ever watch the Olympics, you ever see the camera ever pan over to their face? They're all, literally, they're all pursed lip breathing before they take off. And they don't have lung disease as far as we know. They work out religiously. But they all know if they pursed lip breathe, they'll get record timing all the time, okay, because they're prepping themselves. So I pursed lip breathe for 10 seconds properly. Is there anything wrong with pursed lip breathing for a minute? No. The bare minimum is 10 seconds, so a minute will still be correct. Okay, now I keep my workup breathing in my head. How out of breath do I feel? If I tell myself this, I'm okay. It's going to be too vague. I wouldn't understand that. I want you to use numbers. How out of breath do you feel right this very second after you prepped yourself? How out of breath do you feel? 10 being the worst, 0 being the least. Right now, I think I'm at a 9. No, you can't be because you wouldn't be able to talk if that was true. Okay, all right, let me do a talk test and find out, yeah? Okay, so my breathing is manageable, so my breathing is okay. So where would I be at? You wouldn't be here. It would be all the way down here. Can't say one single word at 9 and 10. The number starts at 1 and an 8. Meaning, if I'm at an 8 on a Borg scale, this is a Borg scale. If I'm at an 8, I would only be able to say one word every breath. My breathing is manageable. Okay? So if I can say a lot more words, which I just utilize the talk test, my breathing can't be bad. 7 would be 2 words every breath. 6 would be 3 words every breath. 5 would be 4 words. The magic 4 words would be, my breathing is manageable. So if I was doing this, my breathing is manageable. Where am I at on my Borg scale? At an 8, because I'm saying one word every breath. I didn't say my breathing is manageable in one phrase, at one time. Okay, I did my, then I take another breath. Breathing, didn't take another breath, is because I had a struggle, right? So I want to determine if I'm okay to start walking. That's what I'm doing right now. So I pursed lip breathe for 10 seconds. I keep a manageable level in my head. So 10 being the worst, 0 being the least, I say my breathing is manageable, so my breathing, okay, so I'm at like a 1 on a Borg scale. I'm not out of breath at all, okay? I'm at a 1 on a Borg scale. All right, now as I walk, every one step I take, I breathe in. Every one step I take, I breathe out. I always start out with that first, just to kind of warm yourself up, kind of get yourself started. So one step inhale. Now, how deep do you breathe in? You don't want to fill up your lungs partially. You want to fill up your lungs at least halfway. You don't want to fill up your lungs like you're only bringing in a quarter, like a quarter volume, a quarter of let's just say 250 milliliters of air, which isn't very large. That's very, very small. That definitely would not be enough. Okay? So if you fill up your lungs, how do you know you're filling up your lungs, properly? You should be able to see chest rise, where you breathe in, the chest is rising. That's a good depth. You don't have to go super aggressive, where you breathe in as deep as you humanly possibly can, where you breathe in 100% of the air, filling up your lungs 100%. Not like a chipmunk, that is correct. I use that a lot. Not like a chipmunk. So I fill up my lungs partially. Breathe in. Don't use that as, that's not, don't lift your leg. So breathe in partially. I love that. So you breathe in halfway. Fill up your lungs halfway. Exhale. That's halfway. That's at least halfway. Take one step, breathe in. How deep? Halfway. One step, exhale. So now let's say I'm walking. Inhale, exhale. My breathing is manageable. Okay, my worker breathing is still fine. I keep walking. Okay, now let's pretend I'm starting to get a little bit too winded. Okay, so according to this question, I get winded very quickly. So I'm starting to get winded. Is it possible I might be going too fast? Sure. Maybe slow it down and see if that counteracts with that. Maybe if I slow myself down, I probably wouldn't have to, if I slow myself down, it's probably I'm just going too fast. Maybe I'm just always been a busybody, somebody who always is busy doing so many things around the house or at work, or I'm just a busybody. I'm always going fast. I'm that type of person. And I have to tell myself to slow down. Sometimes we just have to do that. So maybe this is speed. Now, let's say it wasn't a speed. What else should I be looking at to determine if I should keep going or not? So I looked at on my Borg scale, my talk test, I'm fine. But I start getting a little winded. I want to keep walking. I don't want to slow down or stop yet. What should I be looking at now? Mind you, my work of breathing is high, okay, meaning I'm feeling winded, but it's not horrible. That means I can still keep going. Now, if I want to lessen the work of breathing down, like if it's, yes, pace and depth, very good, very, 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 very good, Karen. Pace and depth. You might be going too fast, or the depth of your breath might be too shallow. Remember, there is a such thing as being out of breath because you're out of shape. So it might not even be an oxygenation problem. Usually you see athletes like this, and you'll notice this quite often with people, is they're out of breath, but their oxygen levels are at 96, 98, 99%. Their heart rate's like around like 114 because they're just exercising. They're like, I thought being out of breath, my oxygen should be down. I was like, no, of course not, because that's not an oxygen problem. That's a CO2 issue. Being out of breath is a CO2 issue. It's a ventilation issue, not an oxygen issue. If what you thought was true, then your oxygen would be down. But that's not the case here, okay? All right, so I'm walking. I determine my work of breathing. I might be out of shape, so should I go aggressively on my exercises when I start my exercise routines? Here, everybody, look. Exercise routines are simple. They're not complex. People make them complex, but they're not difficult at all. On an exercise routine, simply take the time that you can actually do. If you don't have a lot of time in your day to do an exercise, you're going to have to budget your time a little bit, but let's say you start with 5 minutes first. I know it's not going to be a great exercise at 5 minutes, but it's something to start with. Okay? You do 5 minutes. And let's say this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay? You want to start with 5 minutes. Well, great. What's wrong with 5 minutes? Nothing's wrong with 5 minutes. If that's all you can do, that's what you start with. Okay? So let's say you do 5 minutes on a treadmill. Let's say this is treadmill. Okay, so you mark down Monday early morning on a treadmill, 5 minutes. On Wednesday, I'm going to try to increase it to every other day, I should try to increase by let's just go 0.5. What that means is 5 minutes I'm on the treadmill or on a bike, exercise that I can do. I start with 5 minutes on Monday. On Wednesday, I'm going to add 30 seconds to it. So on Wednesday, I'm going to push myself to 5 minutes to 30 seconds. Okay? And on Friday, I think you understand the point now. Now I'm going to add this to 6 minutes. All right? There is one thing to never take away on this. I want to make sure I say this as the best of my knowledge here. Let's say you did 5 minutes, but let's say you could have done 30 minutes. Why do you start with 5 minutes first? When you start out, you could easily have done 5 minutes. Let's say all you could do is 5 minutes, and you work out to your max. Did you know if you get yourself to that point where you are feeling way out of breath, you're discouraging yourself, you might not want to exercise after this. If you push too hard in your first exercise, it might overwhelm you where you look at that treadmill again, or you look at that bike and you're like, I don't want to do that again because last time I just felt horrible. After the exercise was fine, but during, it was just too much for me. You might be discouraged. You might not want to exercise. You want to pick an exercise that's going to be fun and enjoyable, something that you can do that's very inexpensive. The most inexpensive is usually the best one, like walking, swimming, Anyways, so 5 minutes, but the person can do 30 minutes. If you can only max out at 5 minutes, you never start with 5 minutes. You start with something easily achievable. Does anybody know the reason why? Because let's say you can do 20 minutes on a bike. Let's just pretend. And you start out with 5 minutes. That 5 minutes will feel like nothing. It'll feel like it's inconsequential. It'll feel irrelevant. If it doesn't feel like I'm not doing really anything for my body. Okay, but you start with 5 minutes even though you can do more. Why do we do that? Like on the NordicTrack Fits. Good morning. The NordicTrack Fits, the FITs, the Fits, they call it. It's a program. It's like Peloton. When you're on those exercises, these are major athletes that the instructors are professional athletes. They're excellent runners. They do marathons all the time, going 32 miles one direction, you know, and then they go back 32 miles back. These are athletes. Why in their exercise routines they only go for about 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? On low intensity, they'll work their way to 30 minutes, and they usually wouldn't go anything higher than that. Do they know something we don't? It's not difficult to understand. You never overwork the body. If you can't do 5 minutes, you definitely don't start with 5 minutes, because as soon as you go with 5 minutes and that's your max, what you can do on your walking, it's going to discourage you. You don't want to do that exercise because you almost felt like you were going to pass out. You start with something you can do that's easily achievable first, and you slowly perpetuate that time. So we look at this as RPE, okay, rate of perceived exertion. So I'm just going to draw underneath here. Currently, let's say currently, my ability, I'm going to draw this up in a red marker. My ability is I can walk, let's say, 30 minutes. Let's just pretend, okay? And it might not be as high for you, but let's just pretend. I can work out for 30 minutes, okay? My minimum time that I want, my bare minimum, would be 5 minutes. If I ever exercise an intensity of an RPE or Borg scale of like a 4, 5, and 6, and I'm exercising that level, you're in a good heart level exercise. I mean, your heart's going to do very well in that exercise. You know, if I go too aggressive and get my rate of perceived exertion or my work of breathing up to a 7, 8, 9, and 10, it's going to overwhelm me, and I might actually pass out or just not ever continue exercising ever again, because the last time I did, it just brought my anxiety all the way up to the roof. I don't want that to happen, you know, so I'm not going to let that happen. So I don't want to work out in my max. I want to go half of that, which will be about 15. If your max is 30 minutes of walking, and that's the max you can do, you always half it. Okay, your bare minimum would be nearly almost like a quarter of it, if not like a third of it, or I'm not a third, it'll be less, probably almost nearly like less than a quarter of your max. So, and if this looks confusing, don't worry, I'm gonna make it really easy to understand. I think some people probably should have a good understanding right now. If your max on your workout, or what you can max out at, is 30 minutes walking, okay, or 30 minutes on a bike, you don't ever start with 30 minutes. You half it, start with 15 minutes. That 15 minutes, even though you can do 30, will feel like nothing. And then next time you see, well, that was easy, I'll do it again, that's not a problem. You know, you're encouraged to do it. And then, you know, and then you're slowly increasing the time. As you increase the time, you do understand that this 30 minutes will start increasing time too. Without you working out at a 30-minute zone, as this increases, so you're going from 15 minutes to start with, then you go to 16 minutes, then 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This will start improving itself, meaning your overall walking distance maxing out will actually be longer. It will actually be further. They're proportional to each other in a sense. Currently, right now, I can probably walk about 15 miles without stopping. I do that, you know, especially walking around Washington, D.C. That's easy to do. So I can easily walk 15 miles. I don't want to constantly walk 15 miles, though, because it's very overwhelming. So I will do it maybe once every 3 months, maybe, maxing out what I can do and increase that time. Let's say on a jog, I can only jog for about 2 miles before I have to walk the rest. So then I don't work out in those zones yet. I slowly build up, like what Samantha was saying right there, you know, build up the tolerance, build up on the exercise. You're working out, you should always start slow, always. Because the day that you overwhelm yourself, and I see this people like this all the time in a gym, they'll go in, they haven't worked out for decades, if it looks like. Okay, they'll go in and they'll just pick up weights and do this really, really quick. And they're wondering, why don't I get better? Well, of course you're not going to get better. What a ridiculous thing to think about it. You came in weak muscles and everything, and you just start gun-hoing and just ripping muscle apart, and you're going home staying sore for about 4 months. You didn't warm up at all. You didn't warm your body up. You had no strategy at all. You just picked up weights and started moving them really fast. First off, that's not the proper way to work out. And we see this mistake all the time in gyms, you know. In a proper workout routine, it's always 15 minutes first day on a proper workout routine. If you can't do 15 minutes, so like we'll do it like 5 minutes here, 5, 10, 15. 3 days a week, total of 15 minutes, okay? And then we slowly increase the time. Every week in HRN, we increase the time. Well, my new class that I have, the ones that are at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, I have a large amount of people. When they first started out, I know that most of them were not able to walk very far. I know some of them, their goal was just to get to 200 feet. Some people's goals was to get to a mile when they could only do about 50 feet when they first started, 80 feet up for some. Now these guys are at 20 minutes walking nonstop. Okay, 20 minutes walking nonstop. Do you think I just gave them an agenda and told them to go to a gym and do it? No, that's not how we do it. It's ridiculous. You know, you don't go into a gym for that type of result. You go to clinicians for that type of result. We have people that there was this one patient, very good guy. He's actually local to Maryland. His doctor didn't explain to him his result of his pulmonary function test. And it didn't irritate me, but it just, why wouldn't you tell your patient how well they did on the test? What's so difficult about that? Why wouldn't a doctor explain the results of a test to their patient? I don't understand why that wouldn't happen. But that didn't happen. I asked the patient. I asked him. I said, why didn't he tell you the results of your test? And so he sent me the results. I gave him over to Dr. Shaw. I looked at them. And the person went from their whatever lung disease they were. I can't mention names, and I'm not going to go too much into it. But they had an increase back up to normal. Their lung function scores went back to normal, above 80% functional lungs. The DLCO actually increased. So this person had a little bit of COVID, long-term COVID, that was giving the person a lot of problems. And as well as their lung disease was feeling like it was getting worse. So when and this is just one of many in that class. But the one result that I got that just stuck in my head was this one gentleman that I looked at the DLCO. The DLCO actually climbed. Does anybody know what DLCO means? So it's the diffusion. It's the diffusion capacity inside the alveolar capillary membrane. So let me explain this really quickly here. So DLCO, we're going to talk about DLCO. Okay? Now, so let's take, this is an alveolar capillary membrane, just part of it. Okay? And then you have capillaries. Let me red for artery, blue. You know, John, I have every single color except blue. Did you see a blue marker? It's fine. I could just roll on another color. So let's say surrounding, you have arterial capillaries and venular capillaries. It's okay. I'll do it in purple. It's fine. All right. So then I have veins and I have capillaries. So the point on so what happens with a DLCO? We intravenous a gas. If the gas is not penetrating through there to get into the blood is over in the capillaries. So if it's not penetrating, that means the DLCO value will be low. There's not a lot going through. Okay? If the DLCO is higher, that means gas exchange is happening, where oxygen is being transported to the blood and CO2 is being pulled out. Okay? Oxygen is being transported into the blood, whereas CO2 is being pulled out so you can ventilate it out. The DLCO, the higher value, person went from it was like a 1.7 or something back up to 25. So that's an amazing thing to happen, because that's what happens with long-term COVID. People have long-term COVID, that's what happens. They have COVID and it almost looks like idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, and some other lung disease, and especially with pulmonary hypertension. So how do we fix this big, huge problem here where the DLCO is very low? Where the patient needed a lot of oxygen because not a lot was making it through. So they had to pump so much oxygen the person is prescribed a lot of oxygen at first. We see people like on 20 liters of oxygen, 20 liters. It's blended, they blend in ambient air, 21% with the different FiO2 using a Venturi principle. Anyways, so Venturi principle Venturi is a guy that invented the Venturi principle, but it allows entrainment of air, so you're bleeding in regular air with pure oxygen mixed combined. So based on the Venturi principle or the Venturi device itself, it blends it correctly. So it's just what he made. Anyways, it's a calculation as well as the device too. So DLCO, if the value is low, if you see your value is very low, especially like less than 17, it's less than 17, it's down to like 1 point something, then no matter how much oxygen you breathe in, it won't make it to not a lot of that will make it to the blood. Usually when you breathe in naturally, about 4 to 6% of the oxygen in the atmosphere makes it to the blood. 4 to 6%. Not 100%, 4 to 6%. So on your DLCO, when oxygen is trying to make it in and it's not, that means the value on the DLCO will be lower. If the oxygen is being transported into the blood easy, okay, your DLCO value will be high. And of course, CO2 has to get pulled out on the exhalation. Okay, replying to Diana Connolly Major, I went to pulmonary rehab at the hospital, 30 visits, no respiratory training at all. This is much better. Lenny, thank you very much. PT started me off. Yeah, Diana, you should never compare no worries, Diana, but you should like HRN is a reason where we're 98% successful. You shouldn't compete. Like, no one wants to try to compete with us because we have a very, 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 very high success rate. Nearly every single one of my patients, well, first off, every single one of my patients at the 1030 class are going to a point where they won't need me again. So they're going to an advanced level because they've all, I'm an advanced lung and heart disease practitioner. I'm a pulmonary care practitioner. I'm under the Maryland Board of Physicians. So I went to school to do all this stuff, right? Spike, would you chill out a little bit? Come here, baby. I'll end it in a second. You probably just need to go outside. So what was I trying to say? So in the hospital, you get a physical, let's say you get a physical therapist. How much schooling does a physical therapist get in pulmonary rehabilitation itself? Learning the respiratory complications. If you look it up, it's 1 semester. 1 semester. I was actually going to be a cardiologist before I went into pulmonary. And I looked at it, how much schooling does each practitioner get in a specific subject? I did that, of course, and a lot of other people can do the same thing. You just look at, from a student's itinerary of all their class schedules for the whole entire year, how many times are they going in to learn about respiratory complications? It's 1 semester. Respiratory therapist, it's 4 years. It's a big difference. We're specifically, depending on which degree you got. I have a bachelor's degree in respiratory care. I also have a business degree and a lot of other degrees too. But, I'm specifically for lung and heart disease. After a bachelor's, then I had to go get all the other schooling to get my degree with everything else that I have. Just like a doctor. Doctor gets a prerequisite stuff, 4-year college, then goes into medical school afterwards. Right? So I had to go into a different medical school where I had to have an additional 2 years added to my time for additional schooling I needed to graduate with. But anyways, you should never compare the program with HRN because HRN is the top one. I mean, it's just literally the top one. It's so awesome. IFCPD, is the workout the same? No, it's not the same. The workouts are very different. I have emphysema in stage 4 and 20% lung functions left. How can I improve my lung functions? Shirley Sweeney, you get into the program to improve your lung functions. That's how we do it. Michelle Jones, this program is amazing. If anyone has any questions, they will answer and take very care of you. Thank you, Michelle. And Lenny, thank you very much. PT started me off with 10 minutes bike pedaling, then off to other exercises for 45 minutes. Why are they doing it? John, can you scroll down? I was reading that. Yeah, scroll back up again a little bit, right there. PT started me off 10 minutes on a bike pedaling, and then off other exercise for 45 minutes. Why are they doing it wrong? So it's not necessarily they're doing it wrong. They're probably just doing what they're trained to do. And it doesn't mean like, I know everything. You know, that's not what I'm trying to say. Is that in respiratory, if you can't breathe, why would a physical therapist or a nurse or anybody that's trying to exercise you, nurses usually wouldn't exercise you. It's usually, I mean, there are some nurses that do it. But anyway, that's beside the point. Spike, don't you dare. Spike, don't you dare. Come on, baby. Look at that. He's looking at me. He's giving me the look. So I have to cover you up because you're adorable. Anyways, so you go into physical therapy, you know, and let's say you can't really breathe very well, and they're exercising you for 45 minutes on something. It might overwork you, you know. So if they're not teaching you how to breathe and exercise, that probably wouldn't be a really good exercise benefit to you, because you're always going to cut yourself short because you're always out of breath. So what they should be doing is incorporating good breathing techniques first, get your breathing up to a better level before they start you out on the exercise equipment. So what physical therapy, I don't think they really did anything wrong. What I think was that respiratory was supposed to come to your bedside showing you on different equipment how to do better breathing and the exercises involved before you went to physical therapy. You know, but I think it was the other way around, where you went to physical therapy first, did all these exercises, and probably respiratory helped that afterwards. That's not, and a respiratory therapist doesn't mean a respiratory therapist is a pulmonary care, like they specifically in pulmonary rehabilitation. I hire a respiratory therapist, and I'm the, you know, people that know me, I'm the chief executive officer. I hire a respiratory therapist. Never once have I ever hired a respiratory therapist that knew everything about pulmonary rehab. Never. Okay? I always had to train everybody. Everybody. It was never like, oh, here, you know, I don't just hire a respiratory therapist and expect that person to know how to do pulmonary rehab. That's not what they go to school for. Okay? Pulmonary rehab is on-the-job training, and here I'm very strict. People know me. People are scared of me. I don't know why. They are. I'm actually a pretty decent person. But I'm strict when it comes to therapy. These patients mean the world to me, but this program is one program that works. I want to make sure everyone gets it, you know? Anyways, I have emphysema stage 4, 20%. All right, go ahead and scroll down. Let's see. It's amazing. Do they have it in New Jersey? Does anybody understand what virtual telemedicine is? Like, it's telemedicine. We're a telemedicine company. What? So, do they have it in New? Yeah, they have it in the world. It's all over the world. But it's not a building you go into. I mean, we do have that ability, but it's not a building you go into. It's virtual. You guys, just open up your eyes. Read a little bit. It's virtual. It's telemedicine, everybody. So, yeah, you can do it at your home anywhere around the world. It's called virtual. That's why Online Cardiac and Pulmonary Rehab, Home Rehab Network. HRN is a telemedicine company that provides pulmonary and cardiac rehabilitation. You know, that's what we do. But anyways, can you make video of exercise we can purchase? So on My New Lungs, that's where we have that, on My New Lungs. If you go to mynewlungs.com, that's part of HRN, but it's a separate company. You'll see me all over the place in that, and as well as other practitioners in that. But yeah, it's Linda. I hate to say it like this though, but I know you're watching it from YouTube, which is great. And everyone should be following us on YouTube. But anyways, if I made a video, if I wish I can show you this. If everyone went to the AARC, American Association, this is the AARC. If you went to the AARC and looked up YouTube, I'm not kidding. It says, you know, YouTube online pulmonary rehab. Okay. The success rates, okay, the outcomes were so poor and so horrible. Every patient was just going into these online things, looking at videos, and not saying that you, Linda, would do horrible with it. I'm just saying what they saw. They did a study. So the American Association of Respiratory Care, the AARC, did a study with a large group of people about people going to YouTube doing pulmonary rehab, looking at videos, okay, where they were looking at videos, trying to mimic those videos, and exercising with those videos. The outcomes of it were so incredibly poor. Why were the outcomes poor? The people that went in did not benefit very well at all. Why was that? Because there was no peer review. There was no peer review. There was no clinician overseeing the outcomes. There was no clinician overseeing your workout. So people, you had the instructor breathe in really deep, but the person not being reinforced with a clinician is probably doing this. When the coach is breathing deep or deeper, person is walking and breathing, then the other person that didn't have peer review is just walking but not breathing. That you need peer review, so you don't want to have a video, like a pre-recorded video where you can just exercise. You want to have somebody who can at least see it. Now, Mind You Lungs is a subscription, okay? You don't necessarily purchase the videos. They're just, more videos are added to it. You start with week 1, work your way up, all the way up. And there's a ton of things to do on there. But it's all related to the respiratory system. The success rate off of the Mind You Lungs is actually higher than YouTube. Now, mind you, the study wasn't done yet. So, but from everything I've seen, from YouTube versions to Mind You Lungs, the Mind You Lungs, we're seeing a lot higher success rate. But sometimes when you go to YouTube and you look up a video, you're not even sure if they're a licensed clinician. People can look at my license and see that I have an active license, under the Maryland Board of Physicians. That's part of my license. So some people say they're clinicians, but they're not. Then you have other people that say, oh, just breathe in, breathe out. And you're like, well, I've been doing that all my life. How's that helping? Oh, you're feeling alive. They think that they're trying to tell you they're helping you, but they're not really helping you. You've been breathing all your life. Breathing like that is not going to make any difference than what you've been doing. You know what I mean? So with the exercises involved, it's best to be with a clinician first. On Mind You Lungs, on the first week, it usually has you scheduling a session with an active person, a live person, so they can see how you're doing everything, what you're doing, and see if it's part of the Mind You Lungs. You don't pay for it. It's part of it. It's free with it. It comes with that, where you can get reviewed by a clinician to oversee and see how well you're doing. Do you have any questions about the therapy? Stuff like that. So you have the Mind You Lungs, which is online pulmonary rehab. Then you have the virtual one, the telemedicine type, and that's HRN itself. HRN is an online pulmonary rehab, but it's a virtual. It's a telemedicine company. It's not pre-recorded. Okay? If you're not in the program, you need to join. I don't know where I would be without HRN. Oh, gosh, man. I have to say, you guys are really awesome. Really awesome. Michelle, Dennis, Karen, Linda, everybody in here, Pamela, everybody in here. You guys are just fantastic. You guys really are. People always ask me, why do you fight so hard for all these people? And I said, because who else is going to fight? I mean, these people already fought. They're fighting a war of lung battles and heart battles, and they're fighting this war. What's wrong with having a little extra soldier with your platoon, But you guys are awesome. I don't know, this sounds ridiculous, but when I walk or do things, I forget to breathe through my nose. It's like I hold my breath, but not intended to. Then I am very short of breath. Well, see, how do I stop this habit? It's a good question. It's a really good question. The question was, I know this sounds ridiculous, but when I walk or do things, I forget to breathe in through my nose. It's like I hold my breath, but not intended to. Doesn't mean to do that, right? Then I'm very short of breath. How do I stop this habit? So I usually approach it with a 1-on-1 or 2-on ratio. Every time that one foot touches that ground, every time, that tells you to breathe in. So this is kind of forcing you, that sound right there. Of course, I'm not going to be stomping while I walk. I'm not going to do that. That's going to be ridiculous. But the sound it's kind of like That sound is a language telling me to breathe in. And the next one is another sound that's a language telling me to breathe out. So if I hear this, breathe in, breathe out. So breathe in, breathe out. My feet are telling me to breathe. Inhale, exhale. Now, am I breathing in okay? Am I breathing in deep enough? No, I need to see chest rise, right? And as my pace increases, so should my respiratory rate. You know, got COVID, test, fibromyalgia, can't get through it, can't get through doctor visit or PT, but that leaves me exhausted. Yeah, I understand. Walking, okay, then becomes short of breath, voice gets hard to use, sitting, notice headache, and heart rate fast. I do lip breathing, walking, put on Trilogy. Trilogy now doesn't feel like any change. Any help? Thanks. Leslie, I would suggest, what I would really suggest is having one of our doctors or having like me as a clinician or even another clinician kind of understanding the problem a little bit more. Because I know you've elaborated quite a bit, which is great, but I think somebody needs to kind of dissect this a little bit more to see where the problem's at. It could be all sorts of things. So I just don't want to give you an answer that you try and it's not the right answer because I didn't study you yet. You know, I need to study your problems. I want you to tell me your story. I want you to tell me your problems. And then I want to see what I can do to take care of that problem. If anybody who comes in a program that I know I can't fix, I'm going to tell you right then and there. I don't think I can fix you. Okay? But to this date, that has not happened. I've never told a patient I can't fix them. All my classes, every single one, they leave. They get so much better, they leave. You know, they get so much better and they leave. They have their life back. Does anybody have any questions while we're ending? Any questions at all? So, thank you, Michelle. If you call 410-871-4601. I think Michelle needs to do our live one day too. She's great. Absolutely great. I love it. Anyways, everybody, thank you very much. This holiday season, try to be safe. Make sure that we're not eating too much. And remember, too many carbohydrates will do what? Digest and turn to carbon dioxide. It's carbohydrates. So eating too many carbohydrates will actually make you feel a little bit more exhausted, maybe want to take a very long nap. So just make sure we don't exercise too much. Does exercise have to do, let's see, does exercise have to be done all at once? No. No, exercising, Karen, exercising can be, you can do like 10 minutes in the morning. Let's say you can do 10 minutes, but let's just say 10 minutes. You use the time that you can do. So you do a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening, a little bit in the afternoon. If you put a pedometer on you while you walk, you know, around your house, you'll be amazed at how far you walk. Some people don't realize they walk a mile every day. They walk at least 2,000 steps in their home. And so that's an accumulation of the whole day. That's great, you know. Okay. So for Thursday, don't forget on Thursday, we will be doing another live stream. And I believe, is Dr. Shaw coming in on that one? We're going to find out.
No, I don't believe so.
He's not? Okay, he's probably with patients at the thing yet. Linda, the phone number is 410-871-4601. Has he been to many doctors? Where are you at? Thanks. Leslie, I'm in Maryland. We're in Maryland, but this is a telemedicine company that does the pulmonary and cardiac rehabilitation. But no worries, just give us a call anytime, and we can help explain things or even just have you try out the program before signing up completely. So we can do that, everybody. You can try out this program anytime you want to. You don't have to pay anything for it, you know, when you want to try out the program. When you actually want to be in the program, then we take your insurance, and your insurance pays for you to be in the program, you know. But that's, you know, but yeah, anytime you can literally try out the program anytime you want. There should be no excuse. Anyways, everybody, that's all the time I have for today. You know, just be safe out there. Don't get in too much trouble, and I'll see you back on Thursday, okay? See you guys. Bye-bye.